So let me ask you a question. How many of you would love to be with a man who's a provider, who's going to take care of you, who's going to take the burden of financial responsibility off of you? Not that you can't work. 'Cause I know for some of you, you're like, no, I still want to work. I still want to be out there. Yeah, but it's different when you choose to work versus you have to work. Okay. So the question is, how many of you would love to be with that man who gives you the option? And because he has everything else taken care of. Now, I'm going to assume majority of you, if not all of you, okay? Which is perfectly fine. However, what I'm seeing in sitting down with so many different clients, whether it be women who desire one or women who are already with one, there are some common issues or struggles that I think people are not accounting for when dealing with a provider man. Because here's the thing, there's a trade off for everything. Everything has a trade off somewhere. And in life, we have to determine if we are okay with that trade off to get the certain things that we desire. But there is no perfect person, there is no perfect scenario where just everything will be exactly how you want it. Okay. So I want to address these things because I think that if you understand it, one, it'll help you better come to a realization of, is that kind of man really for you? Also, if you are with that man, how to create more harmony in that relationship. So, one of the big struggles that I want women to be aware of when being with a provider man is his availability or lack of. Now, I know people say all the time, well, no one's ever too busy. If a man really likes you, he'll make time for you. And, I'm paraphrasing how it's usually said. And to a certain extent, that is correct, right? Like, no one's life is so busy to the point that they can make no time for you whatsoever. All right. Yeah, I just think because even if it's just a phone call a day or a text, some kind of time can be made to be given. However, and that's why I said to an extent, excuse me, the time that a man has available to then carve out time for you is going to vary depending on what he has going on in his life. Meaning, let's start with the man who has no job. He got all the time in the world, okay? That man can be at your beck and call if you want. He can spend hours on the phone with you. He can hang out with you. He can show you all kinds of attention and give you all kinds of time because he got nothing going on with himself other than dealing with you, maybe. Then let's say the guy who's working the 9 to 5. Well, this man has his set hours. He works his 40 hours a week. Outside of that, as long as he doesn't have other obligations, let's say his own kids from a previous relationship, whatever the case may be, from that set amount of time, he can carve out more time to be with you, hang out with you, talk to you, whatever the case may be. Let's say now we get to this very successful man. Maybe he's an entrepreneur and he's running a multi-million dollar business. Well, entrepreneurs, their hours tend to be more all over the place. He has shortened windows of opportunity to give time to you. Now, again, if he's interested and serious, can he make some time? Yes. But will that be enough time for you to be happy with and to be okay with? And even if it is enough time today, a man who's a provider, a man who has a lot going on, he has more of a worker mentality, meaning even when he has achieved levels of success, it doesn't mean he's going to say, okay, I can stop working now. It doesn't automatically mean he's going to say, oh, I can work a lot less. He might be like, nah, guys, I'm still going to be working them out. He's still looking to build more and grow more and all these things, which again, cut into the amount of available time left over to pour into the relationship. Now, of course, if I'm speaking to the man, I'm going to encourage him to find ways to create a better balance for the relationship and his work. However, it also is dependent on what season he is in with his work, what projects he has going on. Either way, this is something that a woman has to be very mindful of, because it's like on one end, to say, I want this man who's going to be successful enough to take care of things and provide for me and take that burden off my back, which again, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. I want to make clear, because I feel like some women feel like, oh, it's wrong to want that. I don't want to put that pressure on him. Let me tell you something real quick. When it comes to, again, very specifically provider men, so I guess I should clarify some more, that we understand. Provider men don't have a problem with work. They have a problem with lack of appreciation. They have a problem with not getting value for what they're pouring in to things, but they don't have a problem with work. So when you say, well, I don't want to put that pressure on, I don't want to put that burden on him, to him, that's not a problem. It's not a burden. That speaks to who he is, right? That's part of what he may view as his purpose. So he has no problem with that. He just wants to make sure that the woman that he's with can appreciate it, can respect it, isn't going to give him a hard time or add stress to his life, because he's out there trying to make things happen. Okay? But of course, within a reasonable range, because he still has to show up in the relationship. Either way, availability is a common thing. So, to give a solution on with this before we move on to the next point. One, if you are a woman who is wanting to receive that man and you meet someone like that, you want to have discussions early on about how he views his time and availability, how he views the time that needs to be given to a relationship. You have to be honest with yourself about, is this a dynamic that I can be happy with, right? Because if not, so be it. Find someone else, right? Or maybe you don't need to be with that guy who's ultra successful. Maybe someone who's just, he's doing well for himself, he's stable, but he has a more structured set hours, things of that nature that might work better for you. Either way, have those discussions. And if you're gonna move forward with that kind of man, create structure. Because for a lot of guys, especially if he's an entrepreneur, it's very easy to let life just kind of get the best of you and you lose sight and lose track of things schedule-wise, because there's not proper structure in place. But if it can be like, okay, cool, I understand you gotta work, you gotta make moves, and make things happen. So let's agree to, whether it be like Saturdays is our day, or at this time, this is our time, or we need to make sure that at very least every morning we touch base with each other. Like, have those discussions. And that way, if you guys are on the same page, then this won't have to be any kind of issue or conflict for you. All right, so now another common struggle when trying to be with a man who provides, a provider man, is he may lack a level of emotional awareness. All right. So here's what dawned on me, was that a lot of times these men who are out there hustling, working, making things happen, to be successful in a lot of men's fields, there's a level of having to detach emotionally. Okay. And look at things from a very logical place, control the ups and downs of how you feel about certain things. You got to shake things off really fast, keep it moving, keep doing your job, press forward. And unfortunately, that plus the fact that many men are not raised to be emotionally expressive, not raised to be in tune with others' emotions, and you could argue are not biologically wired in a way that makes it easy for them to do those things. When they get in a relationship, they can be very emotionally blind, okay? Not out of a lack of care for the woman. Don't get me wrong. I always got to remind y'all, yeah, yes, there's some who are just blind because they don't care, they don't give a damn, and they're not serious about you, okay? But there's some who they're going to do for you, they're going to make sure you're good, they're going to provide for you, all these things. But being in tune emotionally and picking up on things and catching on to how you might be feeling in a moment with not, even though you're not saying it, your body language, whatever, they may struggle there, right? because again, they're used to operating in their non-emotional side so much with their work in their life and how they were raised. And so for a lot of women, that can create, if you're not aware that this is I mean, some might argue it's a common shortcoming of men in general, but I would argue that with these men who provide, with these men who are workers, it can be a heightened problem, right? Now, there's exceptions to every rule. Some men, fortunately, were learned or had some wiring that allowed them to excel in that area as well, right? But that's not what the common man has. So that lack of emotional awareness can cause a lot of frustration, a lot of conflict, because in many cases, the woman is taking it personally. And she's thinking, oh, he just does not care about me. And to him, it's like, yo, what do you mean I don't care about you? Of course I care about you. I do this, I do that. Like, and it becomes this ongoing battle, but it's just something that he needs to learn more. There has to be a level of patience and grace. Now, of course, if I'm speaking to the man before he's even in the relationship, I'm like, yo, these are things you got to be mindful of and be aware of. But again, it's going to be a longer process for him to get that to a stronger place than it might be for, let's say, a woman, right? Or for a man who's not in that provider mindset. So as a woman, don't be so quick to take offense, right? And be able to recognize where this is just an area that he struggles with. Now it's like, okay, well then how do we get to a place where we can find more harmony with this? Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, in some scenarios, we have to learn when there are certain things we should supplement from community around us versus our partner. Meaning, if let's just say, and I'm just giving a very small example, you just went to the grocery store and some cashier just pissed you off, right? And you are fuming. And now you want to call your man and you want to vent to him and you want him to console you and make you feel good. And this dude's is like, why are you tripping? It's just groceries, whatever. Like he's just so out of touch with the moment, right? Okay, so again, that man has nothing to do with he don't love you, he don't care about you. He's just not that emotionally aware. So maybe if you need consoling in that moment of frustration from something like that, because I think there's other things that he may be more capable of understanding and consoling you through. But in something like that, maybe those situations you call your homegirl, right? Maybe those situations you talk to your mother or your sister. Like you have a community that you can vent to and receive some of that emotional pouring into from, right? And then after you feel better, now you can tell your man, and even though he's not the greatest at it, you don't need him to be anymore at that moment because you got your fill already. You're good. You just want to share with him and let him know what happened. He's like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad you got worked out. Boom, boom, whatever. That's it, right? On the flip side, because some of you may not have that community available, again, when he doesn't react the way that you want, don't take it personal. Don't get upset. Be like, listen, we need to work on your your ability to console me in these moments. Like, talk to like this is what I need you to do when I'm having a moment like this. Just learn to listen, to encourage me, to compliment me, whatever it is that you require in that moment, and allow him to then practice and have the grace of it's going to take some time for him to perfect that or to at least get it at a good enough level for you. Okay. But lack of emotional awareness, definitely something that I've seen happen a lot with when a woman is with a provider man. All right, so let's keep this going. And another struggle that a lot of women face when being with a provider man is he's so focused on solving rather than just listening. Okay. So we kind of just spoke about the lack of emotional awareness, right? And part of the reason that a lot of men in general lack this emotional awareness is because their brain is focused on if you're having a problem, how we can fix this and put it to rest. All right. They're just focused on solve, 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 fix, fix, fix. And for a lot of women, there are times where, yeah, she may want that. She may genuinely desire that from her man. But there's a lot of times where you just want to be heard. You want to be acknowledged. You just need him to listen. You just need to vent, right? But that's not second nature. That's not first nature for a lot of women, for a lot of men. And it's another one of those things where if we're not careful, we're not aware of it in advance, it can lead to a lot of conflict and frustration. So one of the things I always tell couples who are dealing with that issue is you want to learn to communicate to each other what it is you need in that moment. So it's like, all right, if the woman calls up her man saying, I need to talk to you about, this issue that went through today, he can say to her, okay, are we venting or we solving? Right? And she'd be like, all right, we're venting. All right, cool. Boom. At that moment, he can understand. Let me turn off my fix it hat. I'm just here to listen to her and to pour into her and to encourage her. And then if it's time where you need fixing, you say fixing, whatever. But don't assume that the man, and again, it's not that I don't think this happens with most men in general. It's just that I do think with that provider man, it can become more common, more prevalent in the relationship. So don't assume that he will know and understand this already. This is something that needs to be discussed in advance. And you got to understand that, again, his quickness to want to solve rather than just listen is not about a lack of love for you or a lack of compassion for you. It's just how he is naturally wired and how he's used to approaching things in his life. Now, this has kind of hit my spirit, so I feel the need to address it in this point. This also is what leads to these frustrating situations where, let's say, an issue arises in the relationship. So it's not a situation outside the relationship. It's something that happened between them, right? Let's say he was dismissive to her the other day. And so now they're talking about it. And so in that man's mind, all right, we're talking about it. Let's acknowledge it for what it is. Okay, we solved it. We're good. But sometimes for that woman, okay, yeah, we talked about it, but I'm not done talking about it. Like, it might be 3-4 days later, and she's like, I got a few more things I want to say, or I feel like this, or what. And to him, it's like, yo, we already discussed this. Why are we continuing to repeat? To him, it was discussed, it's done, we move forward. To you, it's like, to some women, it's like, I didn't let everything, I need more, I gotta say, I didn't get everything I needed from that conversation, okay? So, there's a level of I think the compromise on both sides is this. You gotta be able to say when, all right, I still need more, I still want us to discuss some more, right? But it can't linger on forever, right? So to his point, it's like, okay, at some point we just gotta solve this and we move forward. We can't just keep rehashing and rehashing and rehashing. So I'm just giving one example of a compromise solution. It can be an agreement that says, all right, if an issue arises, there is a 3-day window of discussion. And that means you as the woman or him as the man can bring it up however many times within that 3-day window. But once we are done, 3-day window finished, we don't keep bringing it back up. All right, now we're done. It's officially out the way. That's it. All right. Now, if you say to me, but Stefan, what if we really didn't get to handle the conversation correctly? Okay, well then that speaks to a different issue that needs to be addressed and resolved. I would also say to you, the most effective way, in my opinion, my professional opinion, to discuss these issues is via letter first. And doing it via letter will heighten the chances of you being able to get everything out and for us to properly get through all the aspects of that conversation that need to be had. All right. But there has to be a window that we agree we don't keep this lingering past, because then that can create a lot more frustration, a lot of negativity, a lot of conflict, and contribute to the relationship completely falling apart. All right, now before we get to the next point, I want to give you an opportunity to join my special coaching program. Click the link in the description below or go to receivingmyblessings.com. It's going to teach you how to heal, how to meet relationship-minded men, how to hear God more clearly, uh, a whole host of things. You're going to benefit from it. You're going to love it. Again, go to receivingmyblessings.com. So now another struggle that a lot of women deal with when being with a provider man is the fact that he needs a lot of feminine energy from you. Okay. So I just have to say this real quick. You know how sometimes women feel like men are the biggest babies when they're sick, right? And you got to take all care of them, and all that tough guy stuff gets thrown out the window. And I, there's a level of truth to that, but I think that when we talk about like men who provide, men who are working, men who handle their business, they're so used to having to essentially live in their masculine energy, be in masculine environments, be in these environments where they got to battle with other people, whether they got to be competing, whatever the case may be, right? And so I believe that it heightens their need for that feminine balance. And it's one of the reasons why you'll see a lot of those men will struggle to be with a woman who's too masculine, right? Because it's conflicting and it doesn't give them that other side that they need, and that love, that nurturing, that ability to relax, right? Like, so the same way a woman will say, you know, she needs the man to step up or be in his masculine to allow her to have the peace of resting in her feminine, right? And that masculine energy, that being a protector or provider makes her feel safe. Well, on the flip side, for that masculine man, her feminine energy is safety to him, right? Whereas if she comes with too much masculine energy, that's danger, that's conflict, that's stress, that's headache. So he needs that woman that can love on him, that can help him relax, that can make things easier for him. And let me also say this, because, you know, we always talk about being a man's peace. And you'll hear people say, oh, he needs to be his own peace. He needs to have his own peace. A woman can't create that peace. Let me clarify by saying this. Being his peace is not about you being fully responsible for the peace in that man's life. It's about being the one place that's not bringing him unnecessary stress, drama, conflict, all these issues. It's being that place where you're going to know how to talk to him, how to love on him. Like, that's what being his peace is. It's like when things need to be addressed, it doesn't mean you can't address it with him, but you know how to do it in a way that lessens the chance of conflict while still being able to get to the bottom of whatever needs to get discussed and addressed. All right. And we can go on and on and on, but I hope that at least helps you understand what I mean when I'm saying being his peace. But either way, that feminine energy is a huge part. And so the reason why I want to put this on the list is because there are women out there who say they want that provider man, but they're not tapping into their feminine. They don't understand the role of it. They don't understand the benefit of it, right? And how that will not just help attract that kind of man, but help nurture the relationship with him, right? Versus repel or push him away in any kind of way. So learning how to be more in your feminine is going to be important. Now, I always tell y'all, tapping into your feminine energy isn't just about a man. This isn't just about romantic relationship. It's about you and your overall quality of life. And you will have more peace. You will have more joy. You will experience less stress when you can learn how to walk in your feminine. Part of what's going to help you with doing that is healing from your past. Part of it is going to be practicing it in your everyday life. Like, you don't have to wait to deal with a man to exude feminine energy. You can exude feminine energy with your friends, with coworkers, in your everyday walk of life, and that will allow you for you to become more comfortable in it, right? And for it to become more second nature. Because the reality is that for some of you, you're working in very masculine environments. You're dealing with things that bring that masculine energy out of you. And then it's hard to turn that switch on and off when dealing with a man. And so you have to learn how to be mindful of that, but understand, because I know there's a lot of women who feel like, especially when it comes to in the workplace, they have to be masculine. But I always argue you could be feminine and actually get more out of the situation. It can benefit you in ways that you may not fully understand. But again, that's for a different video. We're not going to get too deep into that. Bottom line is, yes, with a provider man, feminine energy is of a higher priority in the vast majority of cases. Of course, exceptions to every rule, but in most cases, absolutely it is. All right. And so another struggle, I won't call this a struggle, but I'll just say, you know what? It is a struggle. A struggle that some women have when being with a provider man is the struggle to show appreciation. Okay. Now, I'm going to just speak from the heart, from the spirit right now, and I hope it all makes sense. There's a lot of women who say they want that kind of man, right? Or even have, again, received that kind of man. But then when they have it, their fear of him thinking that she needs him thinking that he can now take advantage of her in any kind of way because he's paying for things and providing for her, her pride starts to kick in a way that she may not even realize is blocking her ability to be appreciative and live in the moment of him trying to pour love into her through his ability to provide and protect her. Okay? And so there's a lot of women who may not realize they're not saying thank you as much. They're not being as reciprocal with what he needs to feel loved and appreciated, right? And cared for. And it's all because, again, there's some blockages there. Even to the point where, for some women, they're carrying this mentality of, well, that's what he's supposed to do. And I always say the that's what they're supposed to do mindset is a killer of relationships, because when you view someone in that way or their actions in that way, you will not appreciate those actions. It's almost like, well, why do I need to show appreciation? He's supposed to take care of this thing for me. That's what a man does. But it's like, no, everything he does for you is a choice. And that choice should be honored, respected, appreciated. And let's be clear, I would say the same thing to a man. Like, yo, that woman pouring into you, loving on you, being there for you, all these things, that's a choice she makes every single day. Don't view it as that's what she's supposed to do. View it as, I thank you for doing that. I appreciate you for doing that. I love you because you're so willing to do that for me and pour back into me. And let that be more fuel to you pouring it back into them. All right. So we have to be mindful. If there is anything that is start here. Learn what that man needs to feel appreciated. Because appreciation for men is going to vary from man to man. All right. One man, it's kind of like the whole love languages thing. One man may need acts of service. One man may need words of encouragement, whatever it is, whatever labels we put on it. Learn what speaks to that man's heart when it comes to feeling appreciated. Okay. And then also, if you are in a relationship with one or you end up in a relationship with one, always be mindful to every now and then check, like, hey, I just want to know, do you feel appreciated by me? Like, do you feel like I'm showing up in the way that you need me to? Be open to that, because it's very easy where you could generally love, care about him, and deep inside you do appreciate it, but you may not realize how it's not being shown, how he's not feeling that from you. And so being willing to discuss it with him and ask him that and giving him an opportunity to express that without backlash, without you taking offense and making it into a different issue. If he says, baby, I'll be honest with you, I don't. I feel like, and you say, okay, you just don't say, oh my God, that's great. Just say, okay, that's unfortunate to hear. Why? Why don't you feel that way? I want to know so we can make some adjustments. And then boom, he expresses to you, and then all right, we if unless it's anything, as long as it's not nothing unreasonable, we make the adjustments and we make everything better. But that's going to help a lot because, again, as I said to you earlier, the men who are truly providers, they don't have a problem with working. They don't have a problem with providing, but they do have a problem with not being appreciated. All right. And that can create resentment and negativity and tension and make everything fall apart. So make sure appreciation is a priority in the relationship. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 signs he's hiding deep feelings for you. I know some of you may think when the man says, "You're too good for me," or "I'm not ready yet," you just automatically think it's BS. He's just feeding you nonsense to make excuses. And I'm not saying there's